You're listening to The RealWealth Show with Kathy Fetke, the real estate investor's resource. Hello and welcome to The RealWealth Show. I'm Rich Fetke.
And I'm Kathy Fetke.
Yeah, and today we have two of our good friends here from Malibu who have quite the journey and quite the story to share. Dusty and Cecily were in some pretty heavy debt from student loans and barely making much of an income. And they put focus and discipline and connection and working together as partners together. And they got themselves completely debt free and now own multiple investment properties and have exceeded over $1 million net worth. So really incredible story, lots of lessons shared. And so let's talk to Dusty and Cecily about what they've learned and what they can teach us.
So Dusty and Cecily, welcome to the RealWealth Show. It's so good to have you here. We asked you to be here because your story is so inspirational. First of all, where are you right now? It looks like
we are sitting inside of our 23-foot Airstream that we moved into 4 months ago.
And we're here at the Malibu RV Park, so not too far from y'all, just down the road.
Well, there's some famous people who have also lived there.
Yeah.
McConaughey.
Yep. He was there for, I don't know, like a year, right? Or
Yeah, I think he was there for a little while. He hasn't been here when we've been here, but he's been around, I guess.
Well, you guys would have been best buds.
Yeah.
We would have.
So you guys have been RealWealth members for how long now? Maybe 3 years?
At least three years, maybe even 4 years, I think, that we got connected with the RealWealth network.
Awesome. So just share with us your story a little bit about, go back a few years, maybe like right from when you guys met.
Awesome.
Sure. Well, we met at Pepperdine University probably 12 years ago, where we were studying, and then we fell in love. We were actually on a trip in Kenya. I had started a nonprofit organization building ovens and doing kind of microfinance in East Africa years ago. And Cecily was a part of one of those trips, and we fell in love. And so after we graduated, we got married in Kenya. We had our wedding in Kenya and spent our first year of marriage living and working with a nonprofit organization in Nairobi for the first year after we got married. Nice. So it was about 12 years ago.
Yeah. During our first year of marriage, we didn't have an income. We were volunteering. And so it didn't take us long to discover how much of our student loan debt we would wind up paying back if we made the minimum monthly payments. And so after doing the math on our $85,000 worth of student loan debt, we looked at each other and we realized we need to both get jobs so we can pay these student loan payments faster than the minimum payments. And so that's what we did. We moved back to the United States, and we both got at least two jobs each, and sometimes three based on the season. And we just got crazy. We started really maximizing the gap between our income and our expenses so that we could take that difference and really throw it at double and in some cases triple student loan payments. And it took us 2.5 years, but we paid off $85,000 worth of student loan debt, and we became debt free in January 2014.
That's awesome. That's
Wow.
incredible. And what was your income source, each of you?
Good question.
During that time, I was working full-time as a pastor at the church on campus at Pepperdine. And Cecily was working at Lululemon, right?
Yeah, I worked for Lululemon. It was just a retail job. But I think the real kicker for us was that I worked for Housing and Res Life at Pepperdine. And so I got free housing for the first 4 years of our marriage. And then after we transitioned to a different house, and Dusty's job changed a little bit. And so he then got free housing for the last 6 years. And so our evil secret is that we've been able to live in Malibu for 10 years. And up until this year, we never paid a dime in monthly housing or rent.
Okay, I'm not gonna call that an evil secret. I'm gonna call that a fantastic secret.
Right.
It's really important for people to understand that you can, with the right focus, you can really live anywhere. You live in the most expensive place in the world, but you didn't pay to live for the housing expense. That's amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
well, going back to
what's that?
Oh, just going back to the wedding. Can you show us your wedding rings?
Oh,
I just think it's so cool. I think that's just beautiful. Yeah. So Dusty and Cecily, you guys are very active. We met at CrossFit, so I know that's a good approach around having to take your wedding ring off all the time and talk about commitment.
Right, that's right. Well, I also say that I can't lose it, and she can't sell it. So of a wedding ring tattoo.
Okay, so sorry about the diversion. Okay, so
no worries. I was just going to say that I think some of that was luck. So we kind of fell into jobs that had some unique benefits, but some of it was strategy too, in the sense that we knew early on that we needed to get out of debt. We wanted to crush it. And so we started picking up random side jobs. Over the years, Cecily's worked as few as 1 or 2 jobs at a time, and as many as probably 4 or 5 different jobs, random things like,
I was babysitting, I was dropping kids off at school, here in Malibu, odd job sorts of things. But also when I started freelancing, what I do now professionally is I am a freelance photographer and graphic designer. And so all of my work is contract for individual clients. And so, you could say that I don't have one boss, I have 100 bosses. Every single one of my clients is a boss.
Right.
But that's what I do now. But over the years, I've worked for Pepperdine. I've taught fitness classes. I mean, really just anything that could move the needle on our student loan payments, we would do.
I love that. Nice.
So during that time, our gross family income was probably about 70 or 75,000 during those years when we were paying back our debt. So because of our free housing, we were able to put 50 to 60% of our monthly income towards our debt payment. And that was really big for us at the time. And I'll never forget, back in January of 2019, when we paid off our debt, or 2014, we realized that we could either spend that money and buy stuff, or we could start saving and investing it. And this is where you come into the picture in our story, Rich, because part of our debt-free journey was paying off of our debt so we could join CrossFit. We wanted to become CrossFitters. And CrossFit Malibu was a splurge for us. And so it was a treat. Once we paid off our debt, we joined CrossFit Malibu. And that's where we met you.
Oh, that's so cool. And you did a lot of Dave Ramsey stuff, right? To kind of coach you on that?
Totally. Yeah, that was really the system that we used to get on a budget. And so 10 years ago, and still to this day, we sit down every month and we look at our monthly income, and we work our spreadsheet from top to bottom with our income at the top and our expenses, and we give, we save, we spend. We have envelopes that we put our grocery money into. We put our $600 a month in groceries, $600 a month in gas. We have a date envelope. We have spending allowances. So we really, it was simple then, and it is simple now, even though we have a few more line items, but we know how to save cash for even large purchases. We've saved up cash for our vehicle purchases. We paid $25,000 for a Porsche a few years ago, and we paid cash for it because we just saved up for it. So it's a system that we've gotten really comfortable with.
That's awesome. And there's a big lesson in there that I heard too. It's something about we, and just like your hands say one, you became one. And so I'd love to hear a little bit from your perspective on partnership, you working on it together, doing this monthly, all that.
Well, I think this gets back to kind of our journey. When we were dating, we realized we were going to get married. We got engaged and we started doing premarital counseling. And our therapist did one of those compatibility little tests with us. And we came back to the session when he was presenting the results of the test that we had done independently. And he said, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And he said, the good news is that the compatibility test shows that you guys are really compatible. There are a lot of areas of your life that mesh. And he said, but the bad news is there's one area of your life that you two are complete opposites in. You just think differently and approach this area very differently. And that area was
finances.
No way.
Money. We had very different perspectives on money.
Okay.
And we talk a lot about how this goes back to our family of origin and just kind of the difference in our upbringing. I grew up in a really rural community in Indiana. I grew up in government subsidized housing. At various times throughout our life, my family was below the poverty line. And I have memories of our church community bringing us food to eat so we could have food for the week. And so I grew up, sorry, I get a little emotional when I talk about that, but I grew up in a context where we didn't have a lot, and so if you wanted anything beyond the basics, my family fell into a habit of using credit cards, really to survive for a period of time when my dad would lose his job. But then in time, my family got used to using credit cards and used to using debt. And so my family saw debt as a tool. And I think in a period of time, it helped us get by, but then it kind of became a beast. And so I grew up with, if I wanted something, I just borrow to get it. Or I'll never forget, I was telling a story in the class that we teach at Pepperdine today about the student loan money that I used to buy a Jeep Wrangler rather than pay for school. I borrowed money and then bought a Jeep. So that was kind of my approach to finances. And Cecily, your background was a little different.
Yeah, a little different. My folks they did have credit cards and they did use debt, but they were very judicious with it. It was very much like debt is a tool sort of mindset, and if you have credit cards, pay them off every month. So I was comfortable with that, but still definitely had a little bit more of a paradigm of never buy something that you don't have the income to support. And so, you never want to live outside of your means. And I think that is, for us anyway, that's a major temptation behind engaging with debt, is that it does enable you to perhaps live a lifestyle that is outside what your incomes can support. And so I know it's a really hard line that we've taken, and it's also not for everyone, but it has resulted in a lot of peace in our relationship with regard to just discipline and knowing our history and knowing that that the tendencies that we naturally have that would probably get out of hand if we enabled ourselves the opportunity.
She's talking about my tendencies that would get out of hand.
It's okay.
But that challenge was one that we saw early on in our relationship, and so it became something that we had to work together through. And I would say now, 11 years later, it's one of our best successes as a couple. And it has really helped form this us that we see each other having, this teamwork. But it really was rooted in this kind of financial challenge early on.
Well, and one thing to just jump in on that is that I don't think we're alone in this, in experiencing that finances can be a major challenge or an obstacle, because statistically, 50% of the reason of divorces occur because of disagreements over finances. And so it's, we knew that we didn't want to go down that path. And, obviously we're far from considering divorce, but it was a path that we didn't want to even toy with. And so we took a really hard line with that.
Wow, good for you. So I'm curious, what I'd love to hear is actually where you are now. Go a little backwards here. Where are you right now financially and all that, and your level of real wealth? And then maybe we'll go back and kind of look at how did you get here?
Yeah.
Cool.
We hit a big milestone this year, actually. A couple months ago, we hit $1 million net worth.
Woo! Yes.
Isn't that nuts? And like that, I'm 34, Dusty's 36. It's not something that's a number that we really, I don't know if we ever pictured ourselves at that point, much less at this age. So it really is such a testament to, like I was saying earlier, really maximizing the gap between your income and your expenses. And it's almost scary how quickly momentum can turn over if you really get focused and you don't mess around in your 20s.
Yeah. That's cool. And that doesn't include your primary residence because you're sitting in it.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Our primary residence right now has wheels.
I love it.
That's just amazing, you guys. You're such an inspiration in so many ways. So how did you get from paying off, like Rich said, paying off your student loan debt and making that a focus, to being millionaires?
Yeah, I think a couple things really tell this story. As we mentioned, back in 2014, when we joined CrossFit Malibu, we met Rich Fetke. And you remember, Rich, back in the day, we would have coffee after morning workouts. And I remember one of those days we were talking, and I think I had asked you what you do, and you started explaining like, oh, you own this thing called RealWealth Network, and then you started talking about what real wealth means. This idea of having the freedom and finances to live life on your own terms.
Yeah.
And as you're telling this story, I felt like inside I was like, yes, like that's exactly the life we desire. And to an extent at the time was even the life we were living. It was just on a small scale, right? We lived very small, but we had freedom. We were not in debt, and we could to some extent make freedom choices. And so I think that conversation, and then thinking about real estate and thinking about investment properties, really from our first conversation, got this ball rolling. And I'm a researcher, I'm a strategist, I like reading. And so, I looked up the RealWealth Network, I became a member, I think probably shortly after our conversation, and started using all the tools that you all offer. We got connected with one of the investment counselors, Ben, and chatted with him about what that would look like. And at that time we were saving, right? So we paid off all of our debt and we had this chunk of money every month, and we were deciding, do we want to spend this on nice things and experiences, or do we want to invest? And so that's when we started heavily saving and investing, maxing out all of our retirement accounts, and then putting the rest into a mutual fund that we were building for potential property purchases. And so I think that discipline, as the financial ball got bigger, it started rolling bigger. The discipline turned into, this big snowball for us for the last 5 or 6 years, really.
Totally. Yeah. And it was in December 2018 that we took our first trip to Detroit, our only trip. We went and visited. We drove around Detroit, looked at some houses, and we connected with, and then,
which was a RealWealth Network partner in Detroit that we connected with.
And then a month later, we purchased a house through them. And so our first house we bought in, was it just January 2019? Yeah, I think it was January 2019. And we paid cash for that one. Do you remember how much?
That was $85,000.
Okay, so we paid $85 cash for our first house, and that was a single family dwelling. I think it rented at $950 a month. So that was our first real estate, first like little toes in the water. And then, but we immediately kept our system going. We kept saving our income. We didn't change our expenses or anything like that. We both still kept our jobs. And then later that year in December 2019, we purchased our second property, which was a duplex, and I think we paid 65 for that, and then put 20 into it because it needed a roof and it needed a water heater. And so it wound up costing us 85, same as the first one, but this time it was a duplex. So 3 doors, all in Detroit, which kicked out, was it like $2,200 a month? Yeah,
about $2,200 a month in income off of those.
Right.
So those were our first big steps towards passive income. It was the first time that we were getting checks. And of course, you guys know that real estate's not entirely passive. We would, check in with the property manager and things like that. But I remember getting those early checks and thinking, wow, I did very little work this month for that check.
Nice. Good for you. Awesome. Was it scary, that first purchase for you guys?
For sure.
For sure. Yeah. And every purchase has been scary just because one of the things that we've done that maybe not everyone does is we have not physically been in any of our properties. We purchased them all from out of state. We toured and we met the property manager, and we toured Detroit and looked at different homes, but we actually didn't buy any of the ones that we looked at. And so in some ways, what we've done goes against kind of conventional wisdom, or the wisdom that I, grew up with of like,
old
you
wisdom.
buy a house that you can see. And so there's a little bit of fear involved in that, but we've always felt like everything that you want in life is on the other side of the things you're afraid to do, right? And so we knew that it would move us in the right direction, and it has.
It's been funny too. When people hear that we have purchased properties in Detroit, we kind of always get the eyebrow raise, and people are like, houses go for like $2,000 in Detroit, and we're like, not those houses. Those are
right.
people. It is a little bit. it's a little bit of the Wild West, and there's a lot of variety in terms of what you can purchase. But we like Detroit, and it's so far it's gone well for us, and as has Cleveland. We also just purchased houses in Cleveland, which we'll get to. But just because of the purchase price to monthly rental ratio, I mean, it's just such a strong ratio. We look for that 1% rule, and houses in cities in the Midwest at a certain price point can really hit that and have for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally it's, those are cash flow markets only, but you bought right before those areas went up in value. So have you seen increases in the property values since you bought?
To be honest, I haven't even checked. You know, when we bought them, we envisioned owning them for a really long time. This gets back to kind of our interest and passion is in that real wealth definition of having the freedom to live life on your own terms. And for us, freedom is our top core value as a couple.
Wow.
And so we were more interested in cash flowing properties that would provide some income so that we would have options of where we lived or where we traveled or the work that we did, rather than an appreciation approach. And so our goal and our strategy continues to be to keep building up those houses that are producing some sort of monthly passive income for us. So I haven't even checked what they would be valued at this point.
It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So recently you really both became job optional, right? What are you doing now?
Yeah.
So this has been a big year. I would say I've been thinking about like 3 big things happened for us this year. As Cecily mentioned, we became millionaires, but my dad also died this year. And that was a big blow to our plan and to life in general. It was unexpected. He was 68. He was very healthy. He had always been an inspiration for us. He and my mom have had a great marriage. They were some models and mentors of ours on what it looks like to be a team. And so that really, I think, shook our foundation. And the other part of that was this question that I think comes up for us and probably comes up for a lot of people of how much is enough? When do you have enough money? When do you have enough savings? When do you have enough retirement? And my dad's death was this moment of us saying, like, I think we have enough, right? Like, I don't know what enough is, but we want to live in a way that allows us to spend a little more time with family, spend more time intentionally with the community that we know and love. And so my dad's death kind of triggered the third big thing that happened this year, which was me quitting my job. It was something we hadn't necessarily planned to do, but we realized if I quit my job, we can step into some more freedoms that are important to us at this time. And so I quit my job back in June. I've loved my job. I've worked at a great church over the years. I'm sad to leave in some ways, but really excited for some of the new things that we're able to do.
Yeah, I mean, we had kind of hit a milestone too this year where Dusty started the working for our church, which we still go there, by the way. So it's kind of cool. It's like formerly his workplace, but now it's just all of our friends and loved ones.
Awesome.
Oh, that's great.
So he started working for that church in 2011. So this year, 2021, was 10 years there, and we just looked at each other and we have just been amazed by how quickly the last decade has gone, and realized that if we're not careful, the next decade will go by just as quickly. And then Dusty's dad died this year, and Dusty mentioned this, like, he was 68. Do you think he thought at 34 that his life was half over? No, nobody does.
Wow.
I'm 34, Dusty's 36. And so it really hit us hard to realize that, like, we may be staring down the second half of our lives already. And so if that is true, what things have we left undone? What things are our peers doing that we maybe don't want to step into, and what things do we want to step into? So, and we're comfortable with being a little bit nonconformist. Like, we don't have kids. Here we are living in an Airstream. So we're comfortable with doing weird things and doing weird person things. I mean, we paid off our student loan debt super fast. Like, and part of the way we did that was by eating beans and rice and beans, when all of our friends were like spending all their money, because, you know, your first few paychecks in your 20s seem so giant. But instead of blowing that and going on vacations to Cabo, we were paying off our debts. And so we're comfortable with living a little bit different. And I think one of the big lessons we've learned in this journey is that how you earn and spend your money should always be informed and bathed by your values, what you value most. For
I love
us,
that.
yeah, what we value most is freedom, and the freedom to spend plenty of time together, unlimited amounts of time together, the freedom to enjoy this beautiful nature that's just right outside our doorstep, the freedom to work out at any hour of the day. I mean, even that can sound kind of casual, but like, we really enjoy working out. It's a source of connection for us and a source of community for us. And so freedom is our value, but that's not everyone's value. I think, you know, some people's highest value is family, in which case the way you earn and the way you spend should be informed by the value of family. And some people's value is health and wellness, in which case the way you earn and the way you spend should serve that priority. And so I think,
Awesome.
regardless of there's no right or wrong way to go about things. I would never say that everyone should like spend their 20s working super hard so they can retire as early as possible and move into an Airstream. That's just what we did, because our highest value is freedom.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you've been counseling a lot of young married people about to get married, or married couples, with this concept, right? Is that something you want to be doing more of?
It really is. Yeah. As we step into kind of this next stage of life, we've sat at the feet of so many wise mentors. We count you two as some of them. And
Thank you.
we desire to support others in their journey of living well holistically. So what that looks like through the lens of faith, or finances, or relationship, or marriage. And so we are intentionally setting up opportunities to spend more time in that space of sitting with other couples, supporting people in their financial journey, things like that.
I feel like that's, you know, thank you that we're mentors, and really, honestly, you two are equally mentors to us.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we were talking to our friend Julian about your Instagram accounts and how much wisdom and what you share, and the deep thoughts, and the humility and everything. And it's like, I think it was Julian who said something that's like, yeah, it's almost like take like a mentorship approach to Instagram. It's just like, wow, you know, not many people take that approach. So I just want to call that out. It's really, really cool.
And you live it. I mean, our daughter was so lucky. Well, both of our daughters, Karina got to do marriage counseling with you before they got married last year.
Yeah.
And then Krista was lucky enough to be able to get to know you in high school when she was in the youth group, the church youth group. And she would always come home and say, Mom, you know, Dusty and Cecily are so unique. When they got married, they didn't want to need marriage counseling. So they went to marriage counseling so that they wouldn't need marriage counseling. And I was like, that's super brilliant. And she just, so many people admire you and love you. Now, Rich and I didn't take that approach. You know, we didn't really do much marriage counseling. And so when we did it, it's because we needed it. Right. So I love that. And I mean, what other advice would you give to couples who are entering this, you know, beautiful thing called marriage that is this unifying two people into one? What other messages would you give?
Something that we think about a lot, and we talk about with couples, is that if you were to go to a hospital, you know, if you were to have a broken arm and you show up at the emergency room, and you walk in, and the doctor treating you says, "Oh, I've never studied this, but people have had broken arms for thousands of years, so I think I can kind of, like, you know, tape it up and you'll be fine." Like, that would seem crazy, right? Like, you would walk out like, I'm not
run out.
a doctor who has never, you know, trained or studied this. And I think we unfortunately approach marriage in the same way in our culture. We think that it is an institution that has existed for thousands of years, because it has. People have been getting married for thousands and thousands of years. And so we just assume that that means we must be good at it, right? If we've done it forever as a culture, we must have it down. Well, we know that's not true, based on the number of unhappy relationships or relationships that end up broken. And so our perspective is we approach learning about marriage and being students of marriage like we want to get a PhD in it, right? We want to be experts in understanding everything about each other, which a lot of that has to do with understanding a lot about ourselves, because usually, who you are and how self-aware you are impacts your relationship. And so we've been on a journey, I would say, over the last 10 or 11 years of knowing ourselves better, knowing our familial story, knowing the things that we like and don't like, all of those things, and then understanding how that impacts us. And so something that we try to share with couples is that marriage should be your hobby. You should read the books. You should invest time, invest money in ways that draw you closer together, the same way that you would if you were getting a college degree in something.
Yeah, or studying real estate, right? We see people obsessed with studying real estate, but put that same obsession into the other important things in your life.
That's right.
I'll jump in with one thing too, if that's okay. I think one of the best pieces of marriage advice I've ever received is that you should fight about everything, because what's the alternative? Like, if this is going to be a 50-year relationship, and you in year 2 or year 3 or year 5, you have conversations already that you have to tiptoe around and that you want to avoid and that you kind of sweep under the rug and tuck away. Are you going to do that for the next 45 years? See what you're like if you're avoiding conversations like that 3 or 5 years in. So there is nothing too small or too inconsequential to bring up and to discuss. And in fact, the more small things you talk about, the more you stop them from becoming big things.
Do you have a structure for those conversations that you recommend?
Yes, actually, we call it the daily check-in, and it's very simple, because simple is powerful. Every night, we each ask each other, and this is usually like our pillow talk, like as the lights are out and we're about to fall asleep, we say, what did you like about us today? What did you not like about us today? Okay. And so it's basically picking like a high and a low about our relationship. And so I'll answer the question, what did I like about us today? And then I'll share what I didn't like about us today, or vice versa. And then Dusty will share the same thing. And sometimes those items are innocuous, and it's like, oh, I really loved going to the gym with you, or I really kind of enjoyed going to the grocery store and laughing, or I didn't like that we didn't spend much time together, or I didn't like the way you responded when I asked you to help me with that thing. And a lot of times the hard things will turn into good conversations, and they might elicit apologies, or they might elicit like really good conversations and questions about how can we do better. But it's something that I have come to look forward to. I know we both do come to look forward to so much, because it's a structured check-in that you're never going to get the time to talk about things in the moment that hurt, right? If something happens in passing at 2:00 in the afternoon, but you know that there will be a moment at the end of your day that's a little bit sacred and that's quiet, and that there aren't any distractions around for you to be able to talk about that and process those things that can sometimes be hard.
That's great.
And you're able to sleep after that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, right?
Better.
Well, and that's something that we've learned, is that a practice or discipline like that, the worst time to start it is when something big happened. Yes. And you're like, okay, we need to do a daily check-in because I'm really unhappy with you right now. And that it turns into this, crazy argument. But the discipline of doing it every day means that we have built a space of trust over the last 11 years, where we know that some days it'll be just little things, and then that has prepared us for bigger, more difficult conversations.
Yeah, you have a way to have that conversation too. I love that.
That is so cool. Nice.
So what's next for you guys in your real wealth?
Yeah, good question.
So this semester we've been teaching a class at Pepperdine. It's called The Art and Science of Living Well. And we built this class as a way to engage with our students, not necessarily to be the teachers, but to be collective learners. And so we talk about finances, we talk about relationships, we talk about spirituality, we talk about fitness, and we're kind of posing the question, what does it mean to live well, and how do you know if you are? And so those conversations in class have been really fun for us. So that's what we've been doing this semester. In the spring, we have some travels. Cecily's going to be doing some photography, possibly in Bali. We got a Hawaii shoot that she's doing. So a little more adventure travel, more time on the road, maybe some more time getting the Airstream out on the road as well.
Awesome.
Love it.
That sounds great.
Love it. And Cecily, it's been fun to watch your business grow.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's become such a in-demand photographer. And I think when we first met, it was kind of new, maybe.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think I got my first photography client in 2013, and with trembling hands, I took his senior pictures, and now I shot 2 weddings last weekend. And you never totally get used to it. There's still, I still have that like pit in my stomach as I'm driving to a wedding. Like, I hope nothing goes wrong, but I have improved both in skill and in confidence over the years. And I feel really proud of that. And I feel like photography is one of those things that with every passing year, I see even more the value of it, because people age and parents age and die, and the number of people who call me up 5 years after their wedding and say, my grandmother died a couple of years after my wedding, and the beautiful photo that you took of me and her, we played in her funeral. And I know that I will be getting more and more calls and emails like that over the years. And so I see photography as more than like a self-serving vanity, which it certainly can be if you open up social media and you see that. But I think it is truly bottling up like special relationships and emotions and the way your loved ones looked at a particular beautiful moment in their life. And that is priceless.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Love that. Awesome.
All right, you guys. Well, it's been so wonderful. I learned so much about you. I've known you for so many years now, and I just learned so much. It was such a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the book that you're going to write. I don't know if you knew you were going to write it, but I'm looking forward to it.
For sure. And thank you for reading my book, Dusty. Dusty gave me great feedback, one which I don't know if we've announced that my book's coming out in the beginning of the year. My second book, 20 years later. So
That's awesome, Rich.
It's great, and it's going to be a great read for your audience, and really for anyone, from any background could benefit from reading it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so essentially what you're saying about time is when Rich and I first met, we would do these future selves, which you'd picture yourself 20 years in the future, and it seems so far away. And here we are, 20 years later. We're having our 25th anniversary in January.
Yeah.
And 20 years since you wrote your book.
Yeah. Lots changed. Lots happened. A lot of lessons.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks so much, you too. Thanks for your wisdom, and congratulations on your $1 million net worth. That's great.
So awesome.
Being debt free too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Hope to see you soon. Bye, you guys. Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on the Real Wealth Show. You can go to realwealthshow.com to get access to all that information that Dusty and Cecily were talking about. 500 or so free webinars, everything from how to really reduce your taxes to how to get a really good loan, or 10 loans or over 10 loans to buy your investment properties, and lots of data on different cities. You can get that all for free at realwealthshow.com.
Yeah, and access to a whole bunch of investment properties.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Referrals to teams across the country who can help you get those properties and build that portfolio.
Yeah, thanks for being with us.
All right, see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities or to make or consider any investment or course of action. For more information, go to realwealthshow.com.